To register your ethnicity as Sikh, go to page 16, question 16, section E. This refers to your ethnicity. Tick the box labeled Other, then write Sikh in the empty box below. To register your religion as Sikh, go to page 16, question 20, and tick the box labeled Sikh.
Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. My name is Jaspal Singh Bhambra, and I will be hosting today's show on Sangat TV. This show will focus on the census that will be taking place on the 27th of March 2011 this year. This is part of a series that has been put together by Sangat TV. So we thank Sangat TV for putting this together. We will look at what the Sikh community should be doing and how we need to participate within the census. Today with me I have two esteemed guests. Gurmel Singh, who is part of the Interim Committee of the Sikh Council UK, and Professor Upkar Singh Pardesi, former Dean of Birmingham City University. So let's start by welcoming our guests. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa,
Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa,
Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. So if I start with a question to you, Professor Upkar Singh. Why is the census so important to the country we live in, and how will the information collected be used?
Okay, just let me explain why is it called the census. Because it arrives and in your doorstep and we say, well, it's a census. It's called a census because the government wants to collect information from on every citizen in the United Kingdom. So, in the census can there at the matlab hai ki sareyan da information aapa chahne ki government chahndi ki honi chahiye hai ki kaun kithe rehndे ne kinne bande rehndे घर दे विच की करदे काम करदे की पढ़ाई कीती है ते जिहड़ी information हुंदी है फिर वो use करदे कि next 10 years ਦੀ planning ਲਈ the census that's why it's called census 2011 last census ਹੋਇਆ ਸੀਗਾ 2001 so ਹਰ 10 ਸਾਲਾਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਇਹ census ਕਰਦੇ ਤੇ ਉਹ ਜਿਹੜੀ information ਇਕੱਠੀ ਕਰਦੇ ਤੇ ਫਿਰ planning next 10 year ਲਈ planning ਲਈ use ਕਰਦੇ ਕਿ ਕਿੰਨੇ hospital ਹੋਣੇ ਚਾਹੀਦੇ ਕਿੰਨੇ ਸਕੂਲ ਹੋਣੇ ਚਾਹੀਦੇ ਕਿੰਨੀ university places ਹੋਣੇ ਚਾਹੀਦੇ so ਇਹ ਬਹੁਤ important ਆ ਕਿ ਆਪਾਂ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ participate करना चाहिए सारियां नु अपना form fill करना चाहिए.
That's very good. Gurmel Singh, can you add to that, but also can you also explain why is it so important for the Sikh community to participate within the census this year?
Yeah, sure. I think in adding to it, like Paddy said here, the information is used for social planning, and if you look at how the local authorities are funding or the public sector is funded, for every person that is counted, about £2,700 goes to the public sector, for every person. So it's very important, for example, for local authorities to make sure that the count is accurate because their future funding depends on it. And for every person that is counted, a council will get £500, the police would get about £178, and the health would get about £2,000. So you can see that's very important for the public sector bodies to make sure that every single person who should be counted is actually counted. And for the Sikhs, it becomes even more important because, see, at the moment, the statistics about the Sikhs are very vague. And the reason for that is that the religious monitoring was only done in the last census. And the evidence is that it was underreported because it was a voluntary question and many people did not declare their religious origin. And the Sikhs are also being recorded under the Indian category. And that also means that the statistics around the Sikhs just don't exist. So I couldn't tell you, for example, and nobody could tell you how many Sikhs died of a heart attack, how many Sikhs children are of the primary school age, how many Sikhs graduated from a particular university in a particular discipline. You know, you just could not answer those questions. So for the Sikhs, it's really, really important that we get an accurate profile of our own community.
So just to reiterate that point, it's very key that the statistics, the information that's been collected is going to be used by local authorities. Is it actually used by central government as well for budgeting?
Yeah. It is used for all the public sector bodies. And as I said earlier, what happens is that the central government funds the public sector, and that includes the local councils. And for every person counted, about £2,700, goes from the central government into the public sector.
Right. So it's very important that we participate, we fill the forms out, so that we're being correctly represented and being counted.
Absolutely, and I think it's for those reasons, but there is another reason as well. It is a legal requirement. It's not an optional thing, and I think people need to understand that we have no choice but to complete a census form.
Okay, so if somebody doesn't complete a census form, what does that mean then?
Right.
I was going to say, it's a
Yes.
heavy fine.
That's right, it's a heavy fine. So it's up to £2,000 fine. And again, we're just trying to reiterate the point, why is it called census? If it wasn't called a census, the alternative would be that it's a survey. And surveys are optional. I'm sure you get a lot of surveys. People stop you on the street and you get postal questionnaires. You don't have to fill them. This is called a census. It's a government census every 10 years. And they expect every citizen to be included. Whether you're a child, your parents are actually putting that information on your child. How many people live in the house and how they're related to the householder. How much income is actually earned by those people. And again, I think we should also look at the very positive sides of the census. It actually records how well our children are doing, or how badly we might be doing. And like what you were saying, because Sikh category does not exist at the moment, so we hear, a lot of headline stories that the Indian children are excelling at education. But when we actually analyze by different groups, we may find that while Sikhs are doing extremely well in education at a secondary school level, A levels, and in higher education, there are always pockets of population that are not doing so well, and we need to record that particular information and then to put a corrective action. And that's why we need this information. Government make policies based on the census information.
Right. So again, it's very key that this information is filled in correctly, and it's going to be used by different departments for all sorts of kind of future strategies, analysis, etc.
That's right. And again, I think not just qualifications. There's a question on employment. And I think, in our Sikh community, we should celebrate that we actually, real value is Kirt Kamai. And, we don't know how many Sikhs are unemployed. But I think there is also a celebratory fact that as a Sikh population, we're very hardworking and we actually have this ethos, go and get a job, whatever it is. And at the moment, it doesn't get recorded.
Well, that's very key. I mean, I was going to come on to that, but unemployment, social kind of daycare, social care, all of these kind of things are all key as well.
Exactly, yeah.
And if we're not entering the information correctly, then we're not going to know the true picture.
Yeah.
That's right. But one of the other things, we talked about a younger generation doing well at school, but I think we've really got a big social problem, not just for the Sikh community, but every community, is our elderly people. We're living longer. Our parents are living up to 80s, 90s. And if we don't actually record that information, there is an assumption that Indians and Sikhs, they look after their parents and, they don't need care homes, do they, But what they may are forgetting, generations are changing and their situation is changing. People are actually living on their own, people do want their independence. And as they get older, they do need that social care. And we need to get that message over that it's no longer the nuclear family. It's moving to a nuclear family rather than extended families. Sure. And it's also happening in the Sikh community.
Okay. Gurmel, as you're part of the kind of interim committee of the Sikh Council, which has been recently formed, what's the view of the Sikh Council UK, and what's their strategy on the census and working with Gurdwaras, your membership, but also addressing the concerns for the whole of the population of the UK, the Sikh population?
Sure. Yeah, I think I can almost sum it up in a few words. Okay, yeah,
that's good.
and basically, our message is: if you're not counted, you don't count. And I think that's really important for the Sikhs to understand that if you're not counted, you don't count. And numbers and monitoring statistics, they are very important, and they can be used in all kind of ways. Yeah. Now, the approach that the Sikh Council is taking is that we want to take part in the media, like we're doing today, for example, to get the message out. We'll be writing to all our membership with some information leaflets, posters. We will be doing an email shot as well. We think that all the Gurdwara Nala members in particular have an important role to play to help the community to understand why it is important to complete the census forms, but also why it is important to make sure that the Sikh identity question is addressed. Because our fear is that what happened in 1991, there was a voluntary question on religious affiliation, and people answered it, but it was underreported. And the Sikhs, in terms of their identity as an ethnic group, that category did not exist in 1991. And in this 2011 census, there is an opportunity to correct that. Okay. So we think it's really important for the community to participate, and that would be our message. Okay.
It's very good. I think we're going to come on to those particular areas later on, and we'll also show the form and the kind of particular areas that we want the viewers and the Sikh kind of population to concentrate on, so that we can collect the right information. I'm going to ask this to both of you. How will completing the census forms help the community over the next 10 years? Now, I think we've kind of touched on this, but particularly socially, politically and economically. For instance, we've touched on 2001 and the census that was completed then, and previous censuses, maybe, I don't know how much of a representation we would have had on those censuses. But what does it mean for the next 10 years? That if we fill this form incorrectly, what does it mean for us? And if we fill it in incorrectly, what does it mean for us?
Yeah, if you look at the official figures based on the previous census, the official figure in terms of the population in UK of Sikhs is around about 350,000. But we know it's much more. It's almost double. It's more likely to be between 600 and 700,000. So if you don't fill the questionnaires, if you don't fill the census, and you don't actually record your identity, you don't get counted. So because the resources from central government and local government are based on the information collected on the census, therefore they actually design budgets for different communities around the information they have. So if we're only counting 400,000 in the next census, but we are 800,000 Sikhs, you can see we're actually shooting ourselves in the foot by not having the other 50% of the resources that should actually go to the Sikh communities, whether it is in schools or looking after our elderly people.
Yeah. I think echoing everything that you have said. I think the other thing is that just look at it slightly differently as well. I don't know if you remember that during the 60s and 70s, a perception was created that the migrant communities or the immigrants in this country are a drain on the system. We are a drain on the health service, we are a drain on the housing list, we are a drain on the education. Now, as it showed in the 2001 census, especially for the people who did take the Sikh religious category, the Sikhs were actually the net contributors to the well-being of this country. In terms of our employment was low, there were far less Sikhs in proportion terms on the dole or drawing benefits compared to those that were actually paying tax. Yeah. So my sense is that if Sikhs do report accurately, what we will also see a very positive profile of the Sikhs emerging, as well as Paddy said, it gives us statistics and to challenge to make sure that we're getting a fair allocation of resources, especially in the areas that need it the most.